Hi everyone, welcome back to Fleecimals Friday. I'm Michelle with Fleecimals, here to teach you some life skills with sewing and crafting. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to repair a stuffed animal tear, which is also helpful for any pet owners too. So this bunny right here was a well-loved plushie that was held by its arm maybe one too many times and now has a tear. For parents out there, your kid probably has one that's going to be their absolute favorite, and this may happen on more than one occasion. So the first thing I'm going to do is, with some tweezers, I'm going to try to secure the stitching that is currently in the stuffed animal. If I can't do this, then that may open it up to having to be completely removed before repair, which is more difficult than one would like. This thread probably was cut at some point and now is shorter than the limb, but I'm going to do a little knot to try to keep it as secure as possible. So I have a needle and I'm going to put on my thimble, and just in the spot that it's already in, I can actually see it here as well. I'm going to see if I can undo it a little bit more just to get as much of a tail as possible without completely removing it. I'm going to go into the stuffed animal and back out and just leave the eye of the needle as close as I can to the edge. That way I can thread with this piece and pull through before knotting. Just to give it a little bit more stability. All right. What I'm trying here is to knot it to an existing thread in the stuffed animal. Since it is such a short tail, I am going to be using the tweezers for most of it. We're just tying a very simple knot to try to keep it from unraveling more. All right, now we've knotted it on that side, so when I pull, it's stronger. I'm not going to cut this. I'm going to actually just kind of feed it into the rest of the arm, just so that way if I did cut it, it could untie a little bit more. So I just threaded it through the arm and that tail is inside. So I'm gonna see if I can do the same thing with this thread. That one is secure, so this must be an end tail from before. And that's just separate. All right, so I have secured the arm. I'm going to give it a little tug just to make sure. And now we're going to sew it back. Now, the stitching that we have already in the stuffed animal is white. But you can use whatever you have on hand. So I did grab a handful of threads. So this is the white, which would match the stuffed animal's original thread. And then I have these two purples. Now, a trick that I learned in college when sewing is that you actually want a darker thread to your fabric choice because it's going to blend and hide better. So I'm going to hold both of these threads right against the stuffed animal, and as you can see, the darker one isn't going to show nearly as much as the lighter. So if the thread that was in the stuffed animal originally was the color of the stuffed animal and you didn't have that exact color, I would go for a darker shade over a lighter shade. But since the rest of the plushie is sewn with a white thread, I'm going to be using white as well. So the first thing I'll do is I will get my needle and threads. And what I prefer a double thread for sewing projects. It's a little bit more secure. It's a lot easier to work with because you don't have to worry about the tail of your thread coming undone while sewing. So this is really great for beginners. This is how I learned as a kid as well. And as an adult, I've just become accustomed to only using it because it's a lot easier to handle, and it does make it a little bit more durable. So I'm going to show a nice close-up of the quilter's knot, which I did show in the sewing buttons tutorial, but I'm going to show it again here with a larger needle, so hopefully you can see it very well. So this is for if you are right-handed. If you're left-handed, it does get reversed in the wraparound. But as a right-handed person, you're going to take the tail of your thread, tuck it underneath your thumb, wrap under and around 3 times. So your thread's going to look like that. You're then going to gather it up with the original tail, and you're going to pinch it between your pointer finger and your thumb. Grabbing your needle, you're going to slide all the way down to the end until it makes a perfect knot. This is a really quick way to make a knot, and once you get used to making it this way, you probably are only ever going to sew it this way, or knot it this way. It also just gives you a really clean knot. There's no loops or tails with it, and then I just snipped it close to that knot as well. All right, so with the arm, we're going to sew this half crescent around. So starting at one side, I'm going to insert my needle into the underside, into the wrong side of the fabric in the arm, so that way our knot is hidden. So as you can see with the thread that I chose, and the fabric that this stuffed animal is, it has a very open weave. So with this regular thread, when I pull hard, that knot just pulls right out. So this is something I didn't know without testing it on the stuffed animal, so this might be something that you come across as well. So I'm going to show you the solution for this. Now, not all stuffed animals are going to have that specific type of fabric. So if I just take this bear and I put my thread through, that thread's going to stay in. So it does depend on the plushie that you have, but for the one that I'm showing today, it is going to need a thicker thread. So I am going to be using embroidery floss. Luckily for me, I was using a larger needle to begin with, but you may need to switch your needle to a larger gauge in order to do this. So I'm going to now thread my needle with the embroidery floss and knot it with the quilter's knot just as before. I'm also going to show you a really easy way to thread embroidery floss through a needle if your eye is too small. So what you're going to need is just some regular thread. You're cutting it about a foot, 10 inches to a foot. You're going to thread both ends into your needle so it creates a loop. Just like that. So now you're going to take the end of your embroidery thread and slip it through that loop that you created and pull. It is going to take a little bit of persuasion, but you'll get it through. This is essentially a way to do to make a needle threader if you don't have one on hand, to just use a simple piece of thread, which most likely you will have if you're sewing. So I'm going to grab some embroidery floss. And with embroidery floss, I do it as a single needle, or a single thread, so I will have a tail. But you can use a quilter's knot with a single tail as well. So you're going to stick your embroidery thread on top of your needle, wrap 3 times as before, and pull through. It is a little harder with embroidery floss because your loops that you're making over your needle are tighter than your floss. But you're just going to gently pull all the way until you get to the end, and it'll give you a knot. I'm just going to trim off the excess. And we will begin. So just as we tried to do before, we will be stitching inside the arm of the bunny. And as you can see, this knot isn't going to go anywhere. So you can look at how the other appendages were sewn on in order to give you some guidance of how you want to sew it on. But with this, it's really great to do a really strong stitch. So maybe it won't look as pretty as if you were making a brand new stuffed animal. But if your kid holds this arm exclusively and it's already ripped off once, that shows that in the future, they're probably going to hold it the same way. So in either case, even if you do have a stuffed animal that has that you can use a thin thread on, using embroidery floss can also help strengthen it as well. So if you've already sewn on that arm once and they rip it again, maybe using embroidery floss and a chunkier stitch is going to help. So we're going to insert through the body of the stuffed animal and into the arm. And we're going to pull. And we're going to loop around. So we're going into the body and out the arm over and over again. So this will create a stitch that will be a little bit visible, but it is going to help hold everything together. If we were to do something like a ladder stitch, which is also known as a blind stitch, it's not going to be as strong. So this stitch is going to help just keep everything together. All right, so as we get to the end, we're going to want to put another stitch really close to this bunny head. And you can also repeat back and pull and stitch all the way around back just to give it some extra reinforcements. Sorry, the needle is a little slippery at this point. But as you can see, there's only really one stitch right in the center of the armpit that's showing and that's visible. So we're going to stitch a little bit back towards the middle, back where that visible stitch is. So you do want to find one stitch that is a little bit more visible for tying off. And then you're going to want to grab a little bit of the fabric itself underneath that stitch. And you're going to pull, but not all the way tight. We're going to stick our needle through this loop, stuck on the leg, and pull, and that'll create a little knot. Now, this is not going to be a very secure knot, so we're going to want to go back through that knot and pull tight, and then you will get a more secure knot. Then you can hide the stitch, the tail, in the plushie. And cut off the excess. So we have repaired this plushie with only minimal showing stitches, and it's very strong. So we have our bunny and we're all done. I hope you enjoyed this Fleecimals Friday video repairing stuffed animals. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.